A few days ago, it was late in the night and I was heading home, but I couldn't stop but think about this scary story. I said it's okay and I tried to brush it off, but when I was at my bed, I realized that the story had hunted me to my bed also. I'm just gonna sleep, but I couldn't. I tried hard and hard, but turned from this side to this side and it was kinda impossible. So if you want to know what is this story, then stay tuned. It was 1980 and this wealthy family decided to build their dream home in Al-Abbas neighborhood of Karbala, Iraq. The house was magnificent, 600 square meters of elegant architecture, spacious rooms, and a peaceful atmosphere. It was the kind of home that anyone would envy. Everything was going according to the plan. The family was happy, their new home was nearly complete, and life seemed perfect. But before they could move in, an unexpected change forced them to leave Iraq. Business opportunities abroad were too good to pass up, so they packed up their bags, locked up their house, and left. They assumed they would return one day, but days turned into weeks and then months and even years, but the once grand house sat empty waiting. So rather than let the house sit empty, they decided to rent it out. So in 1989, a man rented the house with his wife and young child. Everything was normal, the family settled in and life carried on as usual. But behind closed doors, things weren't as peaceful as they seemed. The husband was a heavy drinker known for his violent temper. Neighbors often heard shoutings, arguments, and frightened cries of a baby. It was unsettling, but they decided to ignore it. Domestic issues were private matters after all. Then one day, neighbors didn't hear anything. No more shouting, no more cries. The house once filled with noise was now disruptingly quiet. At first, the neighbors thought they had left without notice. But as time passed, a foul smell began to seep from the house. And eventually, authorities were called, and what they found inside the house horrified them. The wife and child had been murdered. Their bodies hidden in a room had begun to decompose. The husband was nowhere to be found until they finally discovered him in a room. He wasn't speaking or reacting, just sitting there staring at the wall. He was arrested, but what disrupted the police the most was his state of mind. He kept muttering something under his breath. When asked what happened, his only response was, "They made me do it." Weeks later, the husband would die in prison for some unknown reasons. The house was sealed again, no one dared to enter. In 1998, a wealthy merchant from Baghdad purchased the house. He didn't believe in superstition, he only saw it as a valuable property. But because of the house's dark history, he decided not to live there himself. Instead, he hired a caretaker to watch over it. The caretaker, a simple man, he laughed at the locals' warning and moved in without hesitation. For the first few nights, everything was fine. Even he joked with the neighbors, "I sleep like a baby, no ghosts, no noises, just peace." Yeah, he was right, but that peace wouldn't last long, because one day everything would change. The caretaker, who was always seen in the neighborhood, suddenly vanished. His door remained locked, his belongings untouched. Concerned, the neighbors finally decided to check on him. They entered the room only to find him laying motionless in bed. At first, they thought he had died in his sleep, but something was wrong. His body was unnaturally stiff and his face frozen in an expression of pure terror. It was as if he had seen something just before he died, something horrifying. So don't you ever dare to sleep like a baby. Then, just as they were about to move in, a voice clear, cold, unmistakable, "Do not take him." The neighbors froze. The voice hadn't come from any of them. It came from somewhere inside the house. Terrified, they backed away and called the authorities. When police arrived, they too hesitated. There were no signs of struggle, no wounds, no rational explanation. But as they were about to move the body, the room turned ice cold, the door slammed shut, and then they all heard it. Whispers, dozens of them. The officers hardened Iraqi men who had seen everything in their life, and as you know, Iraqi soldiers and officers are known for their courage. But this time there was no time for courage. They all fled the house, and the body remained inside the house for 3 days until finally someone gathered the courage to retrieve the body. The house was abandoned again, but from that night on, strange things continued to happen. Locals have filmed shadows moving behind the window. Some swore they heard faint whispers calling their name when passing by. Others say they saw a man standing at the window watching until he suddenly vanished. Years later, another family moved in. They lasted only one night. In the morning, they fled the house, leaving everything behind. When asked what happened, the father simply said, "It doesn't want us here." The house remains abandoned and no one dares to step inside it because whatever is in there have never left.